All right. Last category, gentlemen.
All
We get
right.
to part 2. Here we go for Best Actor. Jay, what do you got?
My nominees for Best Actor are Zac Efron in The Iron Claw. Dude, first of all, just looks, he's built like a Ford F-350 in that movie. Unbelievable.
I challenge
And
him to an
also,
arm wrestle.
Who kind of knew he had it in him? I'm not sure I knew he had that in him.
I had that. I have some of that stock. I've had it for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what I loved him in was The Beach Bum. I love The Beach Bum.
Oh, yeah.
That's
But,
a great callback.
But he'd never really been given the chance to give a performance kind of that raw and real. And I love that somebody gave it to him. Yep. The J special in this category is going to be Jamie Foxx in The Burial. The only performer who had more raw presence in a movie this year was Godzilla. So Jamie Foxx,
both about as fiery, that's for sure.
Unbelievably electric, just absolute force of nature in that movie. Next, I've got Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers. That one's been talked about to death. Just an unbelievably good performance there. Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer. We've brought up Oppenheimer a few times.
Yep.
And then my final nominee here is going to be Andrew Scott for All of Us Strangers. I think Andrew Scott is kind of like a super mega ultra talent. And he's amazing in that film. Again, I need to watch it again. I think I like that movie more than I think I have said I have. So, but he undeniably is magnetic and so heartbreaking in that movie. So, but my winner, and this is just like, it's kind of up there with like Daniel Day-Lewis in There Will Be Blood. I think it's Cillian Murphy. It's like, this is the definitive performance of the year for me. He captures the best of what, in my opinion, the definitive film of the year is trying to communicate. And he is just such a vessel for Christopher Nolan in communicating this, grand Promethean story. And Cillian Murphy oscillates between like so internalized, and then he does have this kind of innate charm to him that exudes through kind of the awkwardness that Oppenheimer has in the film. It's like this wonderful balancing act that he's able to do. And there's just sort of an underlining intensity to it all. So for me, we're talking like all-time definitive, put it on the acting reel of American cinema history type stuff. So I'm going to give it to Cillian Murphy.
That's high praise right there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, just wait a minute. How about that?
Now
my nominees are Christian Friedel for The Zone of Interest. No one is talking about that performance, which is a good damn shame.
Yeah.
Michael Fassbender for The Killer. Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer. Franz Rosagowski for Passages, which is a fantastic performance. And Andrew Scott for All of Us Strangers. And Andrew Scott was, I was very, 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 very close to give this to Andrew Scott, who I think is one of the giant reasons why that movie works. And he's so great. And it's lovely to see him get a moment in the sun to shine in a lead performance like this. But Jay is absolutely right. And I'm going to take what Jay says and I'm going to take it a step further.
Oh, man. I thought I went pretty far.
So when you think of all-time great performances in biopics, I think of like Peter O'Toole, Lawrence of Arabia. I think of F. Murray Abraham in Amadeus. I think of Denzel Washington in Malcolm X. These movies that, for me, are directorial achievements, but also are completely all within this singular performance by an individual. And if this thing falls off the rails, it is not because of the other parts. It's because of that performance alone. And everything about that movie that you like hinders about that performance. And I think that Cillian Murphy has been an absolutely great actor throughout his entire career, about 25, 30 years on the screen.
Red Eye, baby.
And
I love him in that movie.
This is the opportunity with a guy who has seen the potential in him for so long, in Christopher Nolan, his longest collaborator, he gets to shine in the biggest movie in the world. And it's also, it's at times, like Jay says, it's showy, but at times a lot of it is internalized. Y'all scene of the year is about him trying to emotionally keep it together within the gymnasium, and that juxtaposes itself
It's
later
a stunner
to a lot
moment.
of the stuff with
Yeah.
Jason Clarke. All of the reaction to not just the nuclear test working there, the Trinity test working there in Los Alamos, but then the reaction then later to it having full effect in Japan. And while everyone is celebrating, you are looking at his face and seeing the horror of his creation.
A lot of quiet performance.
And it's so good. It is, I think, one of the defining, biopic performances we've seen in the last 25 years. And I think that it is definitely the best work of his career. It's something also, too, that we have to... shut up, Jay. We have to...
Red Eye is so good.
We have to give him
Wes
his
Craven,
flowers.
baby.
Because when you talk with him, I had the privilege of interviewing him for Awards Watch. He is someone that does not like to talk about himself. He gave a lot of praise to Nolan, to Downey, to Blunt, to Hoyt van Hoytema, to everybody else that did this movie. And I think then that makes it our job to give him his flowers and give his moment to really shine, because he deserves it. He was fantastic in this movie. And I love it. Yeah.
Geez, that high praise there, Ryan, and he's not even your quote unquote performance of the year. That's
he's the second best performance of the year.
Yeah, it's the best performance in 25 years, but the second best performance this year.
Yeah.
This brings the ultimate question to the table: is Charles Melton giving a biopic performance?
No. Don't start down that discourse. That'll get you hot. That'll get you in
the pot. We are.
That'll get you in trouble with the
We are
ding-dongs.
proving why May December needed to exist in our time. Really,
You're right about that.
Oh, what a movie! What a movie!
Good
Cillian
stuff.
Murphy, Oppenheimer, a nominee for me as well, including Zac Efron for The Iron Claw, Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers, Tae-Yu for Past Lives, and Koji Yakusho for Perfect Days. I'm going to break the trend. My winner is Koji Yakusho for Perfect Days by a slight margin. I mean, Cillian Murphy is giving a wonderful performance. Toilet culture. This movie's just Tokyo Toilet, man. That's a business opportunity waiting to happen.
Scrub, just like in Wonka.
Yakusho gives my favorite performance of the entire year.
Oh, I forgot about Chalamet.
Oh, that's chocolate. That's not shit right there.
Wait, you mean you're talking about chocolate? Sorry, I had to do it.
Koji Yakusho gives my favorite performance of the entire year, but I'm kind of biased. I'm very emotionally susceptible to movies that are just very introspective and expressive, like his performances here. I just have a soft spot for these kind of performances that are very. They're not reliant on words, and he barely speaks in this movie unless he has to. And his sense of expression is all building towards an expressive explosion by the end, which is one of my favorite scenes of the year. The utilization of that song "Feeling Good" by Nina Simone and how that all just builds to some grand conclusion. There's a certain level of difficulty in that performance and trying to portray so much when there really is barely even a script at all. There's barely even any writing to this movie. It's all based on how it's visualized from Wim Wenders and how it's performed in this case. But I think just given its limited nature and what was able to be conveyed, I think it is a very challenging work and a wonderful piece of performance. So I think it's great, but in time, I could see myself giving it to Cillian Murphy, and I think he is going to win the Oscar. He did win the Golden Globe as we're recording this, so there's definitely a lot of love for him as well. But there is something just very lingering for me about Koji Yakusho in Perfect Days that I just can't shake, and I had to give it to him. So if I broke the trend, I'm sorry, everyone, but I love his performance in this one.
Big proponent of physical media as well, so we love that.
Well, that's the other
Love him
thing
for that.
that movie spoke to me as a music collector, especially I've noticed the trend building towards cassette tapes making a comeback as well. Not just vinyl, but cassette tapes making a comeback.
Somebody needs to sell the car manufacturers.
Someone needs to. CDs might even come back too. So if Perfect Days is the reason for that boom to start back up again, I'll be the one there to say I told you so.
Yeah. I love that. Give me a good cassette tape. I got
I just
a
love
new
the
one
physicality.
thanks
It's so
to
cool.
Amazon this
Let
year.
me rewind.
Hey, you have to put work into listening to your music. You had to put work into it.
You
It took
did.
time.
Yeah. No, it's a great performance. I echo you and all of that. Brendan Koji Yakusho is a nominee for me as well. My other 4 nominees, Andrew Scott, All of Us Strangers, Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer, Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers, and Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction. One of my favorites
almost
of
made
the
my
year
list.
as well.
Jeffrey Wright, one of the MVPs of the year.
Yeah.
In
I
general.
love it. Yeah, him
Completely
and
agree.
Asteroid City.
Exactly. Yes. My winner here, I will also buck the trend, although I completely agree with what you guys had to say about Murphy and his performance in Oppenheimer. However, unlike some of these other categories, when we're talking score, director, editing, there's simply no denying the craftsmanship of Oppenheimer when it comes to those specific things.
Yeah.
And I love Murphy. I agree. If he goes on to win the Oscar, I will be extremely thrilled for him.
Yeah.
But this is one category where I don't think it's that clear cut for me, because Paul Giamatti in The Holdovers will not leave my brain.
He's really good.
Yeah.
He will
Wow.
not leave my
That
brain.
That is not where I thought that this would go.
That
honestly.
football just can't leave, right?
It just
you
can't
can't let go of that football. It's football season right now.
Exactly.
He's
Okay.
Charlie Brown.
Oh, I like this, JD. No,
Yeah.
no. I didn't think you were going there, but what do you love about it so much?
I think this is maybe the best performance of his career. And I think what's so great about it is throughout the
Rhino,
film,
Spider-Man
Giamatti has to tiptoe between being teacher and mentor. He becomes somewhat of a paternal figure, but he's forced into this situation. At times, he's even combatant to Angus. And then ultimately, we see it evolve into this cordial friendship. Brennan talked at length about the ending of this film, this moment where
Yeah.
we see him go in and kind of confront the what would you call him, the leader of the school, essentially,
Like the headmaster?
the headmaster. And he does it in this incredibly poignant way. It's funny, like on the surface it's this funny moment, but when you couple that with what he's really fighting for, and he's doing it in this really passionate way, there is a tender quality to it as well. And I just, so I love that evolution. Just that whole idea we see at the beginning of him being wholly disliked by the staff and students. He's almost belligerent with the little power he has. He's insufferable, but in this endlessly captivating kind of way. There's the whole eye element of the film that's really great. So like there is this really funny quirkiness to the character that is almost deconstructed through this unexpected relationship. And for me, that is the heart of the film. That is the underlying thematic current that I keep going back to, how we are sometimes thrust in these circumstances that are wholly unexpected, but they end up defining our lives. And that is absolutely the case for these two characters. And how Giamatti taps into that, I find so funny, yet so thoughtful and poignant. And I can't stop thinking about it. One of my favorite performances of the year for sure.
It's this one.
And
This
I
is the
think
one you
it's-
should be looking at.
Yeah. And for me, I think this might be Giamatti's best.
I love it.
it.
I love
Yeah.
it. I think
It's
The
great. That
Holdovers is
movie,
great.
that might be the number one, like, bridging the gap between
Everybody.
normies and cinephiles. Just like recommendable,
Yeah,
genuinely
Just as long as they
good
don't sit next to me,
movie
that's
of the
fine.
year.
I think it's the most rewatchable film of the year.
Yeah.
Or at least
Yeah,
Yeah.
of its ilk. Yeah, as far as being like a true work of art and
Yeah,
being
one where
rewatchable.
you buy the popcorn, share it with the normies, and watch it. Yeah,
It's
a
just
good-
crazy that they dug
movie
it up
f-
from
yeah.
1976.
Yeah, it was weird.
been sitting there for
it's
50
been sitting there
years.
for like 50 years.
Pretty crazy how that.
Yeah, those opening title cards, I was like, wow,
Giamatti hasn't changed
What a throwback.
a bit.
Yeah.
But like I think similar to Murphy, like this is one of those performances where on each watch, and this is the one film I've actually seen a couple of times, at least of those that came out during award season. And I feel like I picked up on so much more in Giamatti's performance on that second go around.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the case is very much the same for Murphy as well, and really any of these performers we've been talking about. But I feel like in terms of the nuances that Giamatti's tapping into, you know, the way the eye shifts throughout like that alone is fascinating, and just that dynamic he has with Dominic Sessa, I just think is incredible. Like this, it's just a sophistication that I don't know if we've seen from Giamatti in quite some time. Maybe since the last time he worked with Payne.
Yeah, it's a quirky performance that's not defined by quirks, which is a hard thing to do, because like so many times you see a performance in a character and they're only defined by their quirks, but they have like no layers to them. But he's giving a very quirky performance, but it's not about those quirks. There's actually something there of substance.
Yeah. And to take it a step further, I think those quirks are actually hiding something, because
they're layers.
Yeah, because we find out that, you know, the character, he's working at this institution because he has to, because he can't really find anything else because of an incident that happened when he was back in college. And so there's like this limitation to him that he masked by being quirky, by being belligerent, you know, by treating the students the way he does, even treating other staff the way he does. Like there's reasons for it that, you know, again, are deconstructed as it goes. And
penis cancer.
the most 1970s thing about that movie is letting a guy like Paul Giamatti lead a big Hollywood movie like that. That's part of what makes it so great. And he is
a holiday
obviously
movie
a
too,
nominee
for that
me.
matter.
Yeah. I don't know. How did the thing do business wise? Did that make money? I feel like it had to have.
That's a great question.
No, I'd have to look it up.
No, I'm going to look that up now.
Yeah, we're all looking it up right now. Wonderful.
But it made those big Santa buckaroos.
Looks like box office was just under 21 million, but I don't know what its budget was.
So nobody's.
Well, it wasn't in theaters for very long because
that's true.
They
released it digitally pretty
streaming.
They released it digitally like 3 weeks after it came out. It was like by Thanksgiving or shortly after.
Got to remember, I think they're Focus Features, and Focus Features is owned by Universal, and Universal owns a little movie called Oppenheimer that made $950 million. So I think they're doing just fine, guys.
Yeah, I think they just assumed this would be an awards player, but I feel like they missed an opportunity, especially given the response to it. I think
I feel like
the timing of it, like this was a great opportunity to get people to go to the movies for the holiday season.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to compare the films because I think The Holdovers is a far superior film, but it definitely could have been like almost like Green Book sort of vibe to it, where they released that movie at Thanksgiving, much like they did with this movie, and let that movie carry its way through for audiences to find it.
Holiday season.
That's a pre-pandemic sort of thing mindset as opposed to post-pandemic. So I had to keep that in mind, but Holdovers I think is a really, really good movie, and Payne's maybe best film since Sideways for me at least.
I think it's probably since Election for me.
Yeah, and
it might be my favorite of his from Payne.
Yeah,
honestly.
it's genuinely rewatchable. I watched it with the family during the holiday, and it was my second go around. And I agree with you, JD. I picked up so much more on the second go around, but I've seen Oppenheimer 6 times, seen it 7 times this week, and probably going to see it an 8th time by the end of the year. 24 hours of Oppie sounds about right.
Gosh, I wish I had your free time.
Hey, you know what?
I think I've seen 3 or 4 movies this year multiple times, and that's about it.
And Oppie was one of them.
I didn't do many rewatches. I really didn't.
Oppie, Ferrari. I've seen Guardians of the Galaxy twice.
Yeah. Well, I saw your Letterboxd stats, Jay, and you and I are almost identical. Very, very close to being identical. So welcome to fatherhood.
Living that dad life.
There it is.
Living that dad life. Yeah. So
yeah, when I have a kid, JD's gonna be like, "Did you get to watch Oppenheimer 2 twice?" And I'm like, "No, I only saw it 4 times."
Exactly.
Took the baby with me.
It
Took him to
changes,
those Alamo screenings.